conversation about color.
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 One of the hardest things to nail.
Exactly. Conversation about there. Perfect. Got that. And let's go ahead and make you the hostess with the mostest.
Thank you.
And you got that. And on that note, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And
to
I will
you.
see you all tomorrow. Have a great meeting.
You too. Or have a great day anyway.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey, how's it going, everybody? We're getting some friends in here. We can start with wins. Well, so Sharon is otherwise detained doing some stuff with people in New York. I don't know who she's teaching or what she's doing, but you guys are stuck with me. So any big wins? Erica, I hear you're renting Josh's studio soon.
Yes, I'm going to be in Vegas teaching a dance photography workshop. So I have some dance models lined up, some attendees, still room for anyone who wants to join. It's gonna be awesome. I'm excited.
Yeah, he's working for me that day. Or one of those days, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I'll be Monday morning. So.
Oh, that is not the day he's working. I think he's with me Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. But anyway, should be fun anyway. So, all right. Anyone else got some wins? Colleen, I hear you got a Google review. Even small, that's a big win.
That's the first Google review. And I'm just playing the long game with LinkedIn and trying to get that going. Meanwhile, I figure I'm just going to keep working on getting more comfortable with the whole photography end.
Yeah,
for
sure.
But keep working on the business to slowly come.
Yeah, just get out there and start meeting people, whatever. And then it just, you feel like nothing's happening and you feel like nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, remember that time when I didn't have any clients? That was a long time ago.
Yeah. But meanwhile, I'm trying to nail down, so be really confident with the photography part when it actually does happen. So yes. I practiced in the 24/7 shooting on a white. I hadn't done that yet. So
yes, which can be a struggle, especially if you have a smaller space.
Yes, it is small. Well, I don't have space, but in my living room it's pretty small.
So I once shot in my parents' house. Like I was living in Colorado, came back here, and speaking of color, everything they had was tan. Carpets were tan, walls were tan. I mean, everything but the ceiling. Right. And I still look back at those pictures, and I was like, the color never was right. They still looked slightly tan.
Brownsville.
The one guy is a good friend of ours, and I keep wanting to message him and be like, can you just come back to my studio now? Because I can do much better than that. Because even knowing color, I just yeah, I know I can do better.
Yeah, I'll probably be that way in a couple of years.
It will, like, you just kind of look back. I mean, it's like kids growing or anything like that. You kind of look back and go, oh, that was a long time ago.
Right.
Like things have changed so much. All right. Who else is winning? Even small, big, little. Crickets.
I shot my 100th person a couple of weeks back for the year.
Yay!
Which was fun.
That's way awesome. But apparently don't say it like that on Facebook, because people are going to Facebook jail for using the word shot.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I went to what did I go to Facebook? Oh, I went to Facebook jail last year for telling someone who asked me a question that jokingly I could tell them, but then I'd have to kill them. And I was put in Facebook jail for a week.
Yes. My friend is a boudoir photographer and goes to jail very regularly. And like, she's not showing anything that, half naked trainers are showing,
Well, the most annoying thing is my husband had just found a stray kitten and brought her home. And I'd signed up for all these rescue groups trying to find her a home or trying to find her a rescue. And I was banned from Facebook. So now we have 4 cats.
No. Apparently it was meant to be.
Yeah, didn't really want 4 cats, but we have 4 cats now.
So, okay, well, we can kind of follow along with either wins or anyone new. Is anyone, I heard we had a couple new coming in.
Well, it's not really a win, but I was at the intensive helping out yesterday and got to meet some fellow crew members. So that was really cool.
That is a win. I love meeting crew members. That's awesome. Did you guys have a good time?
I think we did. I finally met Deb. I feel like I've known Deb.
I know, right?
And then I was like, is this really the first time we're meeting in person? I mean, it's just so funny.
yeah. And it happens either way. So the guy that's been working for me a lot lately went to Headshot Mania 2. I had no idea he lives in my city. I didn't know him. And now, like, it took 2 years for us to figure out we were both in the same city. And he works for me all the time. So
Who was that? I wonder if I met him at Mania.
Austin Miller. Bald dude, shaved head anyway.
I don't remember an Austin at Headshot.
I don't
Mania.
either, but then it's like a lot of you, especially I feel like I know a lot of you since we're all in here every Monday and it's more conversational. So
I have kind of a story that's a little bit of a win at the end. It was a little bit of, I think I was speaking to Christy about this. I shot this woman and everything seemed to be great. And she liked her images as we looked at them, as we were going along with our tethering. And we sat down to do the review. And she was so struck by her neck. She had a little, she was a woman of a certain age and she had a little stuff going on with her neck. And the pictures they were great. They were lit well, but she was so,
we're still on the edge of our seat.
Yeah. To be continued. So looks like she got a phone call.
Something.
I explained to her, sorry about that, I don't know what's going on. I explained to her that I'd be able to retouch it, and I even did a quickie retouching, hoping that would solve the problem. And she was unimpressed and she was so unhappy. She said she was devastated. Now, I've never had a client say to me that they were devastated before. She was so unhappy. So I said to her, look, I'm not going to charge you anything for this session. Let's pick a couple of images or I'll pick them and I'll do the retouching and you can see if you like them. And if you like them, you'll pay me the session fee, blah, blah, blah. But, she was just so unhappy. I could not charge her anything. So she left and went home and I did the retouching. I put up a gallery and I sent it to her and she emailed it back. She said, oh my God, these are great. Excellent work. I'm going to look at them, tomorrow and I'm going to pick out a few. And, she was really happy. So it was, I've never had a client be unhappy and to use the word devastated, but I actually wasn't that thrown because I kind of knew that the pictures were good. They were well lit. They were well posed. There was nothing I did that was kind of wrong. And if she hadn't been satisfied with what I did with the retouching, I would have just said, I'm sorry, I wasn't able to help you, go, go find somebody else, but it worked out okay. She was happy with the retouching. I obviously did a little bit more than I would have normally. But a happy client is a happy client. So that was my little story.
That's awesome. I know we all have kind of some of those that are more difficult. Cool. Is anyone new? Either the Headshot crew or the women's group? Bonnie.
I'm new to both.
Oh, good. Tell us about yourself. Where do you live? What have you been into?
So I'm in Cincinnati and I've done photography are you in Cincinnati?
I'm not. Kim is.
Oh,
yeah, West Side.
I can't see everybody on here. I'm kind of in the middle of transitioning over from more portrait photography to more corporate more headshots and interior architectural work. I've got some young kids that are now in school and I'm trying to move my business more to Monday through Friday. And I've just fallen in love with headshots. And I have a pretty big gig coming up in 2 weeks. And so just trying to get ready.
Well, we are all here to help. So if you have any questions, I do a lot of bigger ones and I know there's a decent amount of other people who do too. So we're all happy to help, whether it's logistics or anything else.
Awesome. I think the whole, even like I've got one light that I work with primarily, but so this is all a little new to me. Usually I, was like for a long time, like I'm natural light photographer and, just kind of enjoyed that. But I'm really looking forward to getting into studio work more.
Cool. So
You said Kim was from Cincinnati. Is someone on?
yes.
Kim
Kim.
Dalton. I follow you on Instagram.
Yay.
How
Work
fun.
is
Yeah.
beautiful. It's good to
Thanks.
see
Yeah, we'll
you.
have to get together.
That would be great.
Fun. All right, Trish.
Myself. Hi, everybody. Big win for me. I actually went on after our conversation last week about telling me to go on the 24/7. I went on the 24/7, not really expecting too much. I was really overwhelmed because I do have like a lot of lighting equipment, and I have these LED panels that I thought would, at least help along the journey or whatever. And as it turns out, Peter popped on just as I was kind of going through all my stuff. He's hilarious, by the way. Like if you haven't actually talked to him, he's funny. But as I was turning my computer around, he's like, "What's that reflector? Get rid of that. You don't need that." And every time I kept on turning my camera, he kept on telling me to get rid of more stuff and more stuff in my studio. And as it turns out, I have Bowens and I have strip lighting. So we set up the parallel lighting. And this week, I just found out last week that I separated my shoulder. Don't know how. Yeah, don't know how. In a lot of pain. I was just thinking it's like, whatever. It is what it is. And as it turns out, it was a separated shoulder. But so I set that up and working with that. And it was awesome because I actually got to put my camera on the tripod to do this
You had your
with the
swoop.
client, which I really wasn't expecting too much from. Like she had called me last minute. There was really no planning. She's like, "I just need this because I'm being suggested for an award." And I was like, "All right, well, come on in." And we did hair and makeup, and she came in front of the camera. And at the end of it, not only did she pay the session fee, which I charged $350 for my session fee, but she ended up purchasing 6 images on top of that. So I was like, I've been dead, guys. Like I haven't really been shooting because my shoulder was in so much pain and I didn't know what from. So I just figured I would rest it. But it was like, rent's due soon. I probably should get some money going. And it was like the universe answered with this client.
It's true though, when you put it out there.
Yeah. And it was all, and now she wants to book a session with her and her only granddaughter for a portrait session. And she's like, "I'm meeting all my girlfriends tomorrow and I'm going to let them know all about you." And I was like, wow, if this is what I can do in pain, imagine when I feel better, what's going to happen. So
The tripod makes a big difference though. Like I do shoot events too. So my shoulders like always have a little trouble, but the tripod has made a huge difference.
yeah, I didn't even know it was separated. I had a car accident like 12 years ago, so it's never really healed. So I just figured every time I overuse it, I'm in pain. And I just thought, well, it's after Christmas. I'll just rest it for a month or so and it'll be fine. And it didn't. And the doctor was like, Peter was actually yelling at me. He's like, "You shouldn't be doing this right now. You should go to the hospital." Like in Canada, it doesn't work that way up here. We can't just go to a doctor and say, "Fix it." Up here, we go to a doctor and they say, "Wait 8 months, and maybe you'll see a specialist." So I was like, yeah, no, work first, doctor later. But yeah, so no, I was really pleasantly surprised. And the photos, I posted them in the women's group. They turned out pretty good. I think there's definitely some improvement that could be made, but considering it was my first Peter Hurley or headshot crew style, where, I actually had a little more guidance than just winging it, I think it turned out really nice. So
For sure. And you got to start somewhere. So
Right.
we all have, and it's amazing being in these groups, how quickly everyone improves. That like you blink an eye and you're like, wow, that's a huge difference. So
I
good for
actually
you for
think that
posting.
sorry, Lori, I think going forward, what I'm going to do is, because usually during my sessions, I usually offer 3 looks with each of my sessions. So what I think I'm going to do going forward, just to also build on my portfolio, is that one look will always be that style of headshot. So that one, it'll give all my clients a nice, well-rounded styles, like different styles for their portfolios or for their, for whatever they're using them for. But we'll also build up my portfolio as well. So
Great idea.
yeah,
That's awesome.
that's it.
All right. Anyone else before we run on to color? Okay, cool. So I'm going to share my screen and we can talk. I'm going to talk a little bit about it and then we can ask questions and go from kind of mold it to where we want to go from there. But color is one of the hardest things to nail. You can get your lighting right and stuff like that, but it's the post-production. So if you can start to figure out how your camera and your lights work together and have one setting that is for your color, for your exposure. Like I know with my lights and my camera, I set my camera to 5,000. I have everything. I don't have to think about it. I can set it up the exact same way every time. And that really helps with color because then I have a preset basically that I put into Lightroom, which spits out the same equivalent every time. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel every time. So the biggest thing I can tell you guys is I'm going to share my screen and we are going to look at trying to see color. And that is, okay, so we're going to look at this. So one of the reasons Headshot of the Week is really helpful with color is you can just look at the thumbnails and you can scroll right through here. And hopefully you guys are going to start to see, what's overexposed, what's underexposed, what's red, what's green, what's, all these different colors. And it really helps seeing it next to either someone else's work or even in a gallery of your own work. You should start being able to see like, okay, this one's a little, this one's a little warm. This one's a little blue. This one's a little, underexposed. We can start to look at these things. And then there's going to be some little triggers that will help you see that. And sometimes it's the shadows or whatnot. So let's go to, sorry, I had everything ready to go and then someone called me. We're gonna look at, sorry, I don't know where I saved it. Okay, we'll look at my Lightroom. So in this color folder, we can look at this and I've done, can you guys see what I'm seeing?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we can look at this. First of all, this is like a shot straight out of camera. You can start to figure out what your camera does. So I switched from the Mark IV to the R5 Canon recently. And I don't know if you guys can tell how magenta this is gray. So this is supposed to be gray, but it is super magenta. So now I have to correct for my camera that shoots magenta. So, we can make it gray real quick. And then can you see the difference between just doing the color picker of how magenta it is? And so starting to train your eye to see stuff like that is really where you're going to get good at color. But look at this lady. This is kind of the champion image of like, that's pretty much the right color. And then I went through and did some different things. Like, can anyone tell what color this is? Like it's too
peachy.
Too magenta, too peach.
Red.
Then we go this one and it's
Green.
This one's too warm.
Warm. Too
This
cool.
one's too cool. Too green. I mean, you guys get the idea. So, but like if you didn't have these all next to each other, it would be a whole lot harder to tell what the colors are. So you really just have to train your eye to start figuring out. And that's why it's really helpful to watch the contests and whatnot. I have another example. One of the guys that works for me shot these two the other day. And can you guys see how, so it's underexposed, right? Well, this messes with your color. If you guys can see in here how red this dude is, and even into his eyeballs, the whites of his eyes are red. And if you would have shot that at the correct exposure, like what, 3/4 of a stop, not a huge under, but just a little bit, then it makes a big difference, you know? So I had to go work and take out the red, take out the, and you can still see it in his eyes a little bit. So that's why getting exposure correct in camera can really mess with your color. Okay. So see, same with this guy, same shoot, underexposed, super red, all the way to whatever. And those aren't my shots, but they kind of are because the company paid me for them. I just didn't actually shoot them, but I thought they were a good example. So far, what questions do we have about color? We can kind of go different directions.
I'd like to mention something, Laura, real
Yes,
quick.
please.
So your tip of watching the headshot crew and stuff is perfect, right? Because that's where we're going to see things the most. Make sure you're watching, while you're watching it, don't be judging the color based on the zoom.
Oh,
Make
good
sure
call.
you are turned into the headshot crew yourself. You can have zoom on the side, but make sure you're looking on that because the zoom color is never right.
Yes.
You could totally confuse yourself by judging color off of zoom.
Yes. And the other thought with that is, we haven't really talked about this part, is calibrating your monitor. Is there anyone in here that is not calibrating their monitor?
I'm calibrated. I just wanted to say hi, everyone. I miss you guys. I just wanted to pop in and tell you guys that I miss you.
We love
Hi, Karen. I miss you too, Sharon. It's been a whole day.
I know. Anyway, this is awesome, and I'll shut up again. But yeah, if anybody's not calibrated, you totally should be.
Yeah, and there's if you go on the headshot crew in the, is it crew perks or the gear? In gear, there's a couple of examples of what are good things, and they're not that expensive. I think they're under $200. But to make sure your color's right, it will save you pulling out your hair when you're trying to get your portfolio past Peter, which really is not the end goal, as we all know. Making money is why we're here. So the reason that we do the associate portfolio is so that we are good enough to really make some money at this. So any question, what questions do we have from here?
So I have a quick question. When I first started out, I was normalizing my color using the color picker on my background because I'm using neutral backgrounds. But that doesn't really work.
No, it doesn't. That's a bad idea.
So my understanding is that we need to do it by eye, basically, and looking at the person. So I just wanted to point that out because you just did the color picker on the background.
Yes. And that was only because there was no human in front of that. I should, yes. So the reason that we don't do it with the color picker, because yes, that is going to get us to a negative color. Like if it's a gray or a white or whatever, we can get it to a 0 color, but that doesn't help us when people have different colors. Like I am not the same color as Sharon, as Kim. Like we all have different skin tones and different things like that, and you have to match it to your work as well. So my associate portfolio specifically, I shot it kind of warm. So once I started with it kind of warm, I mean, within Peter's window of what's acceptable. But I was on the warmer side. Some people shoot on the cooler side. And so once you kind of go with it and that's where your portfolio is going, you want to stick with it so they all look the same. So that's where the color picker really isn't don't let the computer decide what skin tone someone's face should be, is really the thing. So start with your camera, get settings in there, everything consistent, and then all the way across it'll help.
So Laura, since you're talking about color calibration, I just put in the chat a link to register for B&H Photos Depth of Field Conference. It's coming up March 22nd through 24th.
Oh,
Peter is actually talking about shebangers at that. And X-Rite is usually one of the sponsors and gives a discount for the event. So if you want to wait, you usually can get 10, 15, maybe even 20% off. And it's free to register, and it's for portrait, wedding, headshot people.
Awesome. Thank you. We all need a little bit more information as so that's awesome. And remember that you do have to calibrate regularly. You can put a thing on your top bar where it goes red when you need to do it again, because you basically have to do it once a month, because your computer will start to skew and the color will start to go. And then all of a sudden you look at it next to something that you shot, a while back, and it's off. So that's the other thing that kind of goes back to those pictures I showed you. Let me share that screen again. Is once you nail down your color, you really want to have a champion image and always go back to this image and have your other images next to it so that you know that they're all similar in color. When I did my portfolio, I made a collection, and I don't think it's in this library, but I could go back in here if it'll change, and I could go, okay, this goes with this and this goes with this. These are all very similar in color, and I'm not perfect either, but I could at least have them all in one spot so that when I did upload to the Headshot Crew portfolio, that it all did look the same. So, yeah. What questions do we have about color?
Another little note about calibration, guys, is to calibrate your monitor in the environment you're going to be editing and using it. So don't calibrate it on your deck while you're drinking your tea in the morning. Do it where you're doing your editing in the living room with the light on next to you or not on next to you. And that's going to give you the truest look.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I edit in a dark room. Like I find that, like, unless I'm in a room, and that's why I edit at night, and it's probably why my sleep schedule is so messed up. Because I do my best editing late at night. When I do it during the day, I find that I'm not as accurate. And that was my biggest issue when becoming a Headshot Crew associate. Sharon, you had your hand raised.
I wanted to say that I don't need to get into the details of this, but if you upgrade your computer, and I did this last April, I think I bought a Mac Mini. My screen, which is a very high-end NEC screen, could only connect to the Mac Mini via one cord, basically. And I found out that there was not a driver for that screen and that computer to work together yet. So I've been checking regularly. So if you just be careful, if you upgrade, you should definitely check to see if what you have, if it's not brand new, is going to be compatible. Because I went to Adorama and they said, don't even bother buying X-Rite because you're going to have the same problem with your screen, and it's a good screen. So I just have to keep bugging both companies to say, is this, you're going to get this working for me?
Have you Googled a workaround?
Yeah, I've tried it. So this is my own issue, but I just wanted to give a heads up to other people, because it can be very frustrating. If you have something working, you upgrade your computer, your software, and then all of a sudden, you're supposed to, you think, oh, do I have to buy another $500 program or whatever to color correct? And sometimes it's just little drivers or things that these companies are not keeping up with. I know Mac basically likes, it's not the brand I have, so they don't really care about upgrades for the kind of color calibration software that I actually own.
Good to know.
Yeah.
I was going to say a similar thing, because recently I bought an M1, and I know that somewhere there's a workaround that exists, but they don't want you to calibrate this monitor, and especially not using an X-Rite device.
What What
An
M1? What M1
a
did you buy?
Mac. I bought a MacBook Pro.
My iMac, I just bought it. It's only like 3 weeks old. It can do it.
Yeah, no, not according to anything I'm reading. I mean, it doesn't let you save a profile. You have to do it's a big workaround. I get it, but it's not like plug in your X-Rite device and calibrate your monitor kind of a thing.
Yes.
Mine has an M1 chip as well, so that could still be the problem with mine.
Right, and the new monitor, I got an Acer monitor and I'm having the same issue with that.
Well, it is is the blessing and curse of upgrading gear. Like I said, I upgraded to the R5 and it shoots mine. I think, I don't know if it's something wrong with mine, but all of them shoot pretty magenta, but then mine shoots even more magenta than my studio mates. So like, there's just little workarounds with all those different things. So it is something to keep in mind. But all right, I'm gonna look at my notes of what other color stuff I wanted to talk about. Oh, here's a fun. I haven't done it on this computer yet because it's so new. But one tip I have is I have all of my screens. Oh, maybe I can show you. No, that one's dead. My desktop, I do it as a medium gray. I know everyone likes to put pictures and things like that, but if you have a medium gray, it helps your eye start to really recognize what a good gray is. And you can even like pull your Photoshop over and pull it back and kind of look at it next to each other. So that kind of is a helpful thing of just kind of like I think actually the X-Rite people are the ones that taught me that at a Headshot Mania.
I'm sorry. You mean that your screensaver is medium
My
gray?
desktop. So
Your
on this,
desktop.
yes.
How do you make that medium gray?
You just can go pick another. I think you can just go type a number in of gray. You just.
So you don't have a picture or anything on it? You just have a gray background?
I just have a plain gray background.
Really
Okay.
smart. You could even Google the hex code for 18% gray.
Yes. And I don't know that it needs to be 18 even. I think just a solid color gray. And I think if all the numbers are the same, then it means it's got no other color in it. So like 0000000 is white or black.
A color picker comes up. I'm doing it now and a color picker comes up and then you can do a custom color.
Yeah.
And you can put in, you can even do RGB, CMYK, all of that.
Yep.
Martha says if you have a Mac, that's an option under preferences.
Yeah, I just right clicked on the screen.
Cool.
Yeah, when I just got a new Mac too, and when I was setting it, I had gray before my old computer, but I don't remember how I did it. And this time when I was setting all my preferences, one of the options just came up as medium gray and I just picked it and that's what I have. But I didn't have to do anything weird.
Yeah. And I don't think it matters really how light or dark it is. You don't want to probably too dark or too light. But as long as it doesn't have any other like colors around it, it's not slightly pink or it's not slightly green or something that is really going to keep your eye to that middle and just help
It does
you.
help though, because it keeps your eyes from just changing perspectives,
Well, because have you guys ever edited something forever and then you walk away and you come back and you go, holy shit, how did I not realize that was a green part? They look green.
Yeah.
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 Pink. Mine is pink. I always go pink.
Yeah.
So I also noticed that I didn't realize that my computer had a night shift setting. And so I would calibrate it during the day and then I'd be editing things at night because that's when I work the best. And then the next day the colors were off.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it was shifting the colors on me. So you have to
And
make
you just
sure
have to
that's
turn it
perfect
off.
color.
Yeah. There's just a setting to turn it off. So
And
that's good to be aware of.
To that point, I did not realize that my new MacBook Pro, unless you unclick it, defaults to changing the brightness based on ambient light. And I was thinking I was losing my mind. I'm like, it's because I know like you're not supposed to touch the brightness thing once you have it set, but yet I couldn't see anymore. I thought this is really weird. Then I discovered it was something that was happening without me even, as a setting.
Yeah. Well, and then you start to learn that like my laptop is 3 clicks down is where it likes the brightness. So even if I have to, if I need to see something that I need really bright for a second, I know that I just have to go 3 clicks down without having to recalibrate. So if you learn how many clicks from the bottom or from the top it is, then that's helpful. So Vanessa, what's up?
Yeah, so no, I just wanted to mention, just for anybody who's interested, that so I shoot with Canon, and I was having a lot of problems with the magenta thing. And I ended up, one of the associates had told me about Canon software, which is DPP4, which is free if you have a Canon camera. And so basically I use that.
When you're done, will you put the link to that in the Women's Crew on Facebook?
Oh, yes. So sure. Yeah. So basically, because it's Canon's own software, it's matched up with like your Canon camera, which makes sense, right? Because you know how colors are always going to be different depending on the lighting that you're using and the camera and the, whatever, right? So at least when I'm bringing my images onto my desktop through DPP4, the images are no longer magenta. they are much more accurate in color. And then the other thing that this person had mentioned to me was I changed the profile on the back of my camera to, I believe, neutral, which it might have been on standard or something like that, but it made, honestly, the Canon software made the world of difference. And I will say that I'm a protege, but Ivan Weiss also uses DPP4. So we all know Ivan and his work. And yeah, he was the one who had told other associates about it. And it just made a huge difference for me. So I just wanted to mention that.
Awesome. Thank you. And protege, mentor, associate, we all have such different awesome strengths and knowledge. It's like everyone's knowledgeable about something, and we love hearing and
it's also rock solid tethering when you use it. It's DPP for Martha there. But with doing it using the utility of that, then you are also able to record to both your in-camera memory card as well as going to the computer at the same time.
Yeah, I'm gonna pause this whole Zoom and go take care of that right now because I need to go download it right now. That's a world of difference. It drives me nuts that I can't shoot to a card and whatever. So cool.
I'm sorry. Does that work on all camera systems then, or just Canon? Because like with my Sony, I cannot tether if I have a card in the slot.
This
almost all cameras you can.
Michaela, which Sony are you using?
A7C.
Okay, I'll message you later.
Okay.
I thought my tether tool was broken, so I threw it away.
So actually we can, in the women's group on Facebook, we can start a color thread and put all these in there for anyone who could be here or just for reference, because those are really awesome things to know about. Cool. So ladies, let's take a really quick breakout. We can talk about color, come back, answer any questions, and go on our merry way. So let's. Okay. Cool. I'm gonna send you out. We'll do 6 minutes. Does that sound good? Okay, cool. Here we go. You just have to, if you are in here, and just click on the screen to join the room.
Hi, Laura. It's Soren.
Hey, this is actually the women's crew, Soren.
Yeah, this I found. I tried to activate the link from this morning from Peter, and I tapped the wrong one.
Oh yeah.
I found that I'm in the wrong spot because it's woman. Okay, I'm really sorry. I'm going out and never again.
No, that's fine. We'll see you next time. Have a good
Have a
one.
wonderful day. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye for now.
What are you shooting, Erica? Headshots.
I'm on location. Just waiting for my last two to get out of the meeting.
I've done exactly what you're doing.
A lot of downtime.
Yeah. Yes. And you always think you're going to edit or do something, and then it never really works out. All right. Welcome back, everybody. So, does anyone want to chat about what they talked about in there?
Can I bring up a question?
Yes, please.
A concern that I have, and it seems like it was possibly shared by my breakout mates, is when I edit people's skin, oftentimes I don't have any trouble at all. Like, it seems pretty clear to me if it's too red, too magenta, too green, or whatever, except for very pale white people whose hair, if not red, is sort of on the red-ish spectrum. And I just, no matter what I do, I feel like I go from looking at, they seem red, they seem green. I'm not sure what I'm like, I start doubting my eyes. I just can't quite get it. And I'm wondering, like, for tricky, am I just nuts that I can't do these kinds of people? But then, like, is there a way to kind of do it by the numbers a little bit?
Ooh, by the numbers. I'm not a number child, other than I have like a Post-it with my preset numbers that I use.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, that might be a good starting point is, like, I know that I'm like -7 on highlights and plus 18 on blacks. And so that's a good starting point. And especially if you're shooting always same lighting and the same temperature and camera, that will help you. Otherwise, I would just put it next to an image that I know is right and see how it looks. If there's someone else that has a better way to do it, then I'm all ears, because I'm definitely not a number child. Or just don't photograph, freckled people.
That's true.
I have issues. My children are pasty. I've got pasty children and I can't get the color right. It's like if I get the red removed, then they look dead. And I can't get enough color back into them. So I think I'm just going to do black and white portraits for them from now on. So anyway.
So actually, that's a great idea, Z. I'm going to just turn mine black and white all the time because that's me.
So Dee, and actually what I've noticed about your children is I think you're taking a little too much red out, and you just need to bump the vibrance. I think if you bump the vibrance and the saturation maybe a little in some, that I think that will help, because I think that's kind of where you're getting the void of color.
Yeah. No, I'm bumping it to about 30 before.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, I know that's too high. But anyway.
The thing I always remind people is at the end of the day, we do have red in our pigments in our skin. It's okay to have some red. I think when we go to take out red, it's more like, I'm thinking that when I go to take out red, it's people with like rosacea. It's like the very edges of noses and stuff like that. Or like it's winter here in Boston. And so I'm getting like the rawness around lips or stuff like that, or like wind chapped. But otherwise, I feel like it's okay. We're like so afraid of having red in their skin, but that's okay.
Well, you know, Val, the reason I think that this is happening is because people are underexposing and then having to take out the red because they underexposed. So their whole image is like, especially if they're getting it in the whites of their eyes and things like that, that's really where I think that's where people are getting so trying to get the red out so much, is that they're not shooting it correctly the first time.
Yeah,
So-
like Mel said, everybody has red in their skin. A tip that I could share with you guys that I use sometimes, if I'm in Photoshop and I'm looking at an image and saying, is there magenta in there? I can't really tell. Just use the color picker on the background. Because if there's going to be red, I mean, everybody's skin has red, some people more than others, especially redheads. But if you check the background and the background is looking gray, then the skin might not be as red as you think it is. If that makes sense.
Yes. So that's a good way to show that numbers can tell you that. And if my Photoshop will open quick enough, I will show you guys that, just that backdrop that we had. Share my screen.
One thing though I did find because they kept saying to me, oh, when I was shooting on my X drop, they kept saying like, oh, it's looking blue in the background and this and that. Then when I switched to doing straight paper in my stuff, all of a sudden it went to being that neutral gray. So I came to conclude that it was in fact the X drop white definitely had some bluer tones to it.
Yes. And different backgrounds and different fabrics and stuff. I don't even know what this is, because this is one that my assistant shot, but you can, if you guys can see this, you can pull it up and you can kind of see that this has blue and magenta in it. You know, so, and then, you know, it can get pulled different colors. And so then if we do like a hue saturation, it'll tell us a different story when we, you know, if it's that way, then you do the color picker again and it's going to tell you, like, you're going to see all the reds here and stuff. So
Can I ask you a silly question? How do you get that color picker?
You just go to the squares right here.
Yeah.
The color squares, and it'll just pop it up.
Oh.
So this is nothing on, right?
There's also an eyedropper on the left.
And try to do a 5x5 if you're using the eyedropper.
Yes, there's definitely different different ways to do it, but that's
And you
just
can do it on the hair. You don't have to just do it on the background.
Oh, so yes. And actually that was a good point. Is I don't know if I have one that's really easy to show really quickly. But you can, I mean, like, let's go back to this lady, and you're not really going to see it too much on hers, but yeah, a little bit. Okay. So on this magenta one, if you start looking, am I sharing? I'm not. Let's go back here. You can start to see, especially where things meet the background, you're going to start to see the fringe or the shadows. And that's where, like, you can even see right in here, you can see that little bit of magenta that's in right there. So if you're just looking straight at the face, you maybe aren't going to take it in, but maybe, you know, zoom into the hair, zoom into the shadows. And that might be a little bit of a way to show what you got going on. But I think the overall is just starting to learn, like, watching and looking at all sorts of different pictures and trying to kind of like Peter says, what's wrong with it before I say anything? Can you pick out what color it is before he says anything? Just get that practice, because it'll just happen when you're looking at your own images if it's a repetition thing that you've already gotten under your belt.
So Laura, I have a quick question. I don't know how to raise my hand in this thing, so I'm
Oh,
just
you're good.
saying.
Just talk. You're good.
Okay. So I just put up 4 pictures on Facebook in the group, and I'm looking at them, and they're all kind of different colors, and they all came from the same session. And obviously I was playing with all of my stuff. You said was underexposed. Mine was all overexposed, like to the max. And I had to really bring it down. And I just like, I want to get it right in camera. And I'm not using a flex kit. So I want to know I want to get it right first and not have to do as much editing as I had to do on these.
Okay, so I actually have a good test for all of you to go do. And that is set your lights up, have a person in there that is patient, because this will take a little bit. It won't be terribly painful. But this will start to help you learn your camera too. For color is start at one end or the other and then bump it. You like start with 200 to 500 to start, but start at 3200 depending on if you have an idea of what your lights are in, you can narrow this down. But say you have no idea what color spectrum your lights are. Start at 3200 and go to 6,000 or 7,000 and just do a picture every 500 Kelvin. So this is in Kelvin. You should be changing your color in Kelvin. But start at 3,000, go 3,000, 3,500, 4,000, 4,500, and see which color you like best. That's just an easy way to really nail it down really quickly.
I mean, in camera or on?
In camera.
Okay, in camera.
So you're changing in the custom color section when you're picking your white balance and stuff.
Yes.
Custom Kelvin.
In Kelvin. And if I could,
And then the Canon, the color, that's always, I don't know if you can do it in anything else but Kelvin, right?
I mean, you could just pick tungsten, or you could pick
Yeah.
presets.
Right.
Which, like, if you start to know color, then like I could tell you almost, I'm a human color detector, and like I can walk into a hotel and go, oh, this shit's orange, So, but that's a really good way. Like you're stationary, you're in the space that you're going to shoot, and you'd go in whatever increments you decide, and then get a little smaller. So if you're doing 500 chunks, when you get to go, oh, this is close, just do 100, like 5,100, 5,200, and go from there, and then find the color that you like, and then always set it to that. But on the same vein as that is make sure your lights are at the same power every time.
So if your lights say they are 56 Kelvin, that doesn't necessarily mean your camera is? Like you wouldn't necessarily set it at 56?
So I think my lights are, I don't know what they're officially. I think they're officially 5,000. I think Pro Photos are 5,000, somewhere in there. And I set my camera to 48, and I'm still teetering on that might be a little warm.
Okay.
I was going to say that I got a recommendation from someone in this group to get something called the Expo Disc, which I've just started using. I don't know if anyone else has used it, and it's working really well for me.
I've never used one, so I have no, but the other thought is like, you shouldn't have to buy it. It's wonderful, and if it works for you, awesome. But if you don't want to buy more shit, just put a person in there and do increments and figure it out.
It's not that expensive, and I guess the thing is, for me, I don't always shoot in the same light. So basically, the theory of it, you probably know, is that whenever the light changes, you get into the position of the subject, and then you put it over your camera lens and you take a shot, and that's supposed to give you the neutral gray. And then you set your custom white balance in your camera to that neutral gray. And so it's great for being on the fly without having a gray card if you're changing your lighting all the time.
I use it outside. I've never used it with lights.
That is brilliant. I own one and never thought to do it with this stuff.
And I wouldn't think to do it with headshots either, because you're really going to be in the same lights in the same thing. And what worries me about something like that is that you're letting the expo discs and the camera make their decision. Because again, it's not about getting a neutral gray specifically. It's about getting the color of the person's face correctly and having them to match all of your other stuff. So it could be a good baseline, but you still need to be making the decision.
Yeah, I mean, I do some stuff in post as well, but it's a better starting point in a way, and it's quicker than if you're on the fly and not in the same lighting situation every time, than having to figure out your Kelvin.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Also, I just put an app in the, if you have an iPhone, there's an app called Light Spectrum Pro. It's a lot cheaper than buying a spectrometer to, it's not perfectly accurate, but it gives you a really good sense of what your lights are giving off. So that's a good starting point for adjusting your Kelvin in your camera too.
So actually, this all just made me have a thought also of if you're shooting in different environments with like specifically constant light, I don't have to worry. I shoot strobe, so I don't have to worry about it as much. But if you're shooting, say, the Flex Kit and you're on location, then one really good thing to do is take a frame, get your stuff all set up, get your settings in camera about the way you want them, and then take a picture, a frame without your studio lights on. It will start to tell you what the ambient light is doing. If you really should have it be black, would be helpful, but if you can't, then at least you know what colors are affecting your images. So there's, overhead lights or, that you could fix right then. You could turn those off. I know someone, I don't remember who it was. They literally like unscrewed light bulbs. Like I never go that far, but I've heard of people doing it because apparently it was right over their head. So trying to think about having your ambient light is a thought too, because that can change color. So, and another thought is making sure you have lights that are all the same color. I know we talk about that, use the equipment you have, and I totally agree with that. But you have to also pay attention. Say if you're using 2 ProPhoto strobes on top and then a Godox flash on the bottom, those are probably different color lights. So you're going to maybe have blue up here, blue up to here, and warm from down here. So, maybe the solution is light gel. Maybe the solution is you just are aware of that and fix it in post. If you don't have the money to buy it, there's different ways to fix it, and you don't have to specifically buy more equipment, but just be aware that different lights have different colors, even if they're all strobes or all constant or whatnot.
And even the Godox / Flashpoint lights vary based on which model you have.
Even the like high-end ProPhotos do. My little ones are a little bit different than the big ones. So, but usually families, same brands, are closer together than each other, rather than using a ProPhoto here and a Godox here. They might not be the same color. And there's actually a lot of YouTube videos on what their actual Kelvin is. So that might be a fun research thing. If anyone is looking for their exact Kelvin, you can go on YouTube and figure out what your camera or what your lights are supposed to be. So that might be a good starting point. So
I had a photographer come to the studio and he couldn't figure out why his images were off. And he had a polarizing filter on his lens because he mostly shoots outdoors. So it's the little things you don't think about that can catch you up.
Well, and on that same thing, of someone was talking about color profiles. Maybe you have maybe you change your color profile in your camera, either by accident or intentionally or whatever, doing something else, remembering to change it back.
I also used it was supposed to be a UV filter that had no color change, but it did have a color shift. When I took it off, it made a huge difference.
Yes.
And it was just on there to protect my lens.
For sure. And I am the worst. I don't use any of that. I don't even put lens caps on my cameras. Fun fact about Laura. No lens caps. Yeah. Okay.
Quick question, if there's
sure.
time. So this might be a dumb question. I'm in a smaller studio now because of COVID, and the walls are like a light, not super light yellow. I think I have to paint them, right?
Or
Driving
use,
me crazy.
or put V flats next to you. Just put V flats next to your client on the wall.
Ceiling
Like,
too.
huh?
The ceiling is too.
Oh, yeah. I would paint the ceiling like yesterday.
Right? All right. That's what I thought.
Yeah. I mean, yellow's hard. If it was,
Oh,
I mean, you could live with it and just be aware that, you know, you have to go -3 on yellow every time. But
yeah.
people could start to really look jaundiced, and not like yellow is not a great color on people's skin.
Okay.
You know what, Lisa? I'm just going to tell you that I just got my own studio, and same thing. The walls were like a yellow color, and right away I was like, I'm painting this. My husband was like, but why? Because in his mind, it's basically white. But I painted it, and so for you, it's going to feel so good to have just like a nice fresh coat of paint. Never mind what the impact is on your photos. I think it's going to feel amazing for you to work in. So I'm all for
I like
painting.
to really get it
You
right.
just use V flats.
And I just like to get it right in camera. And V flats are great, but I do newborns too, and I can't really surround them with V flats. So.
And if it's on the ceiling too, just
yeah,
paint's
I
cheap.
just have to do it.
Yeah.
Speaking of paint, I took a food photography course, and they highly recommend, if you're shooting in a studio for food, to use ceiling white, because ceiling white paint is the most neutral white there is. Because when you get white paint for walls, there's all sorts of different textures and colors that can shift it. So do the walls and do the ceiling in ceiling white paint if that's going to be your studio.
So, and I actually like a medium gray for my walls and a white for my ceiling, but that's because I mostly do headshots in studio. If you're doing other stuff and using lights different way, that might, you know, you might want the bounce. But like if you go in Tommy Collier studio, it's like dark gray. Everything is practically black. So you can go in different ways with that. I prefer not white because I don't want it to bounce everywhere. I don't want the light to bounce back. Especially if it's in a small space. So that might be something to think about, but you definitely want to, there's even YouTube, or you can Google it, what some very neutral gray colors are too. So I would, even if you, but like Michaela, I painted my entire house with ceiling white on the ceilings because that's what it's for, but it's also very neutral. But just make sure you're not getting something with a color. Get the most neutral you can get, because then you won't have those issues.
Can we talk just a minute about, we've talked about problems, can we talk about solutions?
Sure.
So when you're looking at an image, I think one of the first things that you look at in correcting your image is your exposure. So I look at things in terms of exposure, tone, then hue, saturation, and then last luminance. Because if you take those in a specific order, you've got a pattern built up for troubleshooting. And sometimes you can stop right after the first one, or sometimes you have to go all the way down the line. Just my 2 cents.
Yes. And then once you get I don't know where my Post-it went. My office is a freaking mess. But once you get a system, you can write it on a Post-it note, and then you always have it, or you can make a preset, but that is beyond me. But you can at least have that starting point so that, you know, at least start here. But yes, exposure first. And then basically, if you're in Lightroom, I don't know if Capture One is set up the same way. I shoot into Capture One, but I don't edit in there. But it's almost that way in the window. The only thing is the exposure is below Tintin thing, but it's all like right in that top thing of where, you know, do exposure, do hue, saturate, or do your color stuff, and then go down into some of the other things. And if you have a specific person, you can use, I think that was a very good point of, you can use luminance and take some of the color out. Oh, and this is another big color thing, is a big mistake that people do, and how to fix it is, a lot of people go, oh, there's red, I'm going to take the red slider down, and then they look practically dead, right? So instead, you add the opposite color. So you can say you're in Photoshop or whatever, or like basically the way they do it in Lightroom too, is you're not just taking green out when you you're going away from green, you're going into magenta. So just remember that if you're taking a color out, you need to add some too, so that you're moving stuff around. Does that make sense? I didn't say that very clearly, but don't just take all the red. Make sure you're adding color or moving your slider around. Okay, any other questions? Or I know this is a huge subject, and let's start it. Well, we can start a thread in the women's group for more questions or specific problems that we can keep the thread going for a while so that we can, go back to it. If someone has an issue, we can go, we talked about it there.
I have one more tip.
Sure.
If all else fails, walk away, come back.
Yeah, for sure. And sidebar of that is if you're having trouble, ask someone else to look at it.
Yeah.
All of us are happy to help, even if it's just, if you just need another set of eyes, ask anyone, put it in the group, put it in the main Headshot Crew group, phone a friend, we're all happy to help.
Where is the thread? Sorry, my video off. The women's group thread.
Are you in the women's group?
I don't know. Maybe not.
On Facebook, we have a lovely group. We talk a lot about fun stuff there. I shall put it in chat. And someone the other day requested to join without, you got to answer the questions. Otherwise, okay. I just ignore it. Or really, I email you and say, answer the questions.
All right.
But yeah, I'll start a thread on color there, or we can keep going on the questions that I started the other day. But we're all happy to help, and we want you guys all to be able to start seeing it, because that's really the big difference is being able to see it. Because we can fix something we can see. If we don't realize it's that way, then how do you fix something you don't realize?
Is there anybody interested? Would there be interest, I should say, in me making a video showing how to use that EOS utility for Canon and the DPP4?
Yes.
Okay.
Personally, yes.
I just figure there's so many Canon shooters on the crew and stuff like that. It's a good thing to know. So
yes, and anything that is the path of least resistance is the way I run my life right now. So I personally love it. Cool. All right, ladies. Well, thanks for a great chat, and I hope you all have a wonderful Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Okay, submit to Headshot of the Week.
Thank you.
You got till tomorrow. Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank